Welcome to Season 5 of She Ventures. I am your host, Doria Lavanino. She Ventures is a podcast about women and their work and life pivots. I believe in the power of storytelling. I also believe that if you change one woman's life, you start to change a family or a community. Our mission is to elevate the diverse stories of everyday women in their work. One promise, no mansplaining ever. Sit back, listen, and hit subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us at sheventurespodcast.com. She graduated as an attorney from American University in Washington, D.C. as a privacy lawyer before joining the 0.03% of women of color tech founders who've raised venture capital. Today, she is co-founder and CEO of Goodfynd, which started from an organic quest to find food trucks, both before and during the pandemic. Here to tell us about her journey is Sofiat Abdulrazaaq. Welcome to She Ventures.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for your patience in going through your name, which I must say is the most challenging one I have ever come across.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm Nigerian, but my first and last name are Arabic. So it always happens. Not a problem at all.
Let's start with your work pivot. You obtained your JD. Did you sit for the bar? And then did you work as a lawyer before you started your entrepreneurship journey?
Like you said, I graduated from Washington College of Law and I went to school part-time, right? So I worked a full-time job and was really deep into the product space, product management, but really wanted to explore law. So I did explore privacy law from a technical perspective. So I worked at tech companies and looked at those types of privacy implications for products and really found that my love was in building products, not assessing products or for privacy concerns, and pivoted into entrepreneurship. So I did spend a brief stint.
Like as an internship while you were in law school, that kind of thing, or?
Well, I did like summer internships, yeah, but then I actually took on privacy roles at tech companies and then turned into a product manager, managed product from a director level. So I had staff, that type of thing. And then that led me into entrepreneurship. I just didn't like practicing or using my legal skills as much as I did building products that created impact for people. So I pivoted very early, like within a year.
That's lucky, I think, in many ways, because I'm a law school dropout myself. And within 5 weeks, I was like, this is just not my scene. But at the same time, I do think law school teaches you how to think in a certain way that's very useful in the business world.
I don't think I would have been as great as a product manager specifically without my legal career, because I was always thinking about the legal implications to the end user, which made me really great at that job. But it's made me an even better CEO, especially in payments, because privacy is so important, right? Security is so important. And the way I think with my legal brain, I think sometimes it makes my staff a little not happy. Because I have to slow them down. I'm like, whoa, that, there are many laws that we'd be breaking if we did this versus this. But I think it's definitely made me good at what I do now. So I don't regret that time for the world, but I just think practicing law can be quite boring.
I agree with you 100% on that. I'm sorry for any lawyers listening. So product, and it was 2019 that you and your co-founders were working on a concept that would become Goodfynd. Can you walk us through a little bit about how that came to be?
My co-founder, Kyle, was changing careers to UX design. And we all would eat at a lot of food trucks. The thing about my background and my co-founder's backgrounds are we're all first generation Americans. So Kyle and myself are Nigerian and Lamir is Jamaican. And so we eat very authentic cuisines in our household. We're also people of color. So we eat soul food and things like that are traditional to our African American cultures as well. We would eat at food trucks, because the founders of food trucks are largely diverse individuals, because there's a heavier barrier to entry to own a restaurant, right? Like it's just the
Makes a lot of
economics of
sense.
it all. And so we would eat at them, but we found the experience to be very frustrating. I'm a millennial and I am very impatient. I think Gen Zs are even more impatient, right? So waiting in line wasn't a thing that I enjoyed. I didn't like the small menus. We didn't like walking up and then something that we wanted to order that we thought was on the menu was down. Isn't there? Hated it. From start to finish, I was like, if this has to be the experience, I'm not going to be a repeat customer like I want to be. Because I was eating some of the most amazing food. The idea sparked with Kyle, like, hey, what if we, for a consumer, just made this easier, right? We always knew where they were parked instead of having to rely on their social media where they might forget to update it. If we had menus online where we could always see what they were offering, we could see what they were out of. And if we could just skip the flipping line, right? Like, we were new workers. So, those early days jobs when you have 30 minutes versus an hour to eat.
Yeah.
I don't have time to spend 30 minutes in line. Like, I want to enjoy the meal. We set out to solve the consumer problem. And as we dove deeper, we realized that these entrepreneurs, and we call them entrepreneurs because we believe that that's what they are as well, they were having complex operations. Their businesses were just as complex as like a restaurant or a brick and mortar retailer or anything like that. But they had less time, less resources, and they were operating in smaller units. And we felt like, you know what? What we need to solve is their back end operations so that they can be seamless on the front end. And that's how Goodfynd became a business in a box for mobile businesses so that they could really handle all of their complex operations really simply and give us, the end user, like the customers, the people that make them successful, they could give us the best experience every single time.
That's an incredible story. And when I went yesterday to download Goodfynd, I noticed there were two apps. So is there one for the consumer and then one for restaurant owners?
Exactly. So we pride ourselves in being mobile first and hardware light. For many reasons, we want to give our owners and operators the tools, like the hardware tools, to run an efficient business, but we also are very cognizant of their space and their mobility. We build for that mobility specifically. We do it in a lot of different ways, but our mobile app is one of the essential ways that we do that. One app is for them to run their business, and that's only a piece of it. The actual business in a box lives somewhere else, but that app allows them to sell in person.
To access, right?
Yeah, the real secret sauce is in the full package suite that they have access to in another form. But then there's the consumer app, right? Because we like our apps. We want them to be able to download on Apple or Android. Very few times are we, on the mobile web. And so we just wanted to facilitate, again, that great customer experience by having a front-facing app for the consumer as well, to make it easier for them to discover and engage with owners and operators.
It makes so much sense. I have two Gen Z daughters, and one of them for Christmas asked for a subscription to either Postmates or Uber Eats because she's constantly eating out. Now, where do you service? Is it all 50 states, or how is that working right now?
Our largest market is in the DMV where we started. And then our second largest market is in Atlanta. But we have grown to 15 markets now, which is
awesome.
Really cool. Yeah, we're really excited about it and plan to be nationwide by the end of next year. But we focus on our B2B customer. And again, being that really amazing back-end solution, giving them technology that they need at an affordable price and not building something that's too heavy. A lot of the incumbents they do too much and they come at a hefty expense. And so we really work at striking that balance for them. As we grow density in these other states, we'll then apply that to the consumer piece, right? So right now, if you're a consumer in the DC area or in the Atlanta area, you can discover amazing options near you. And in our other 14 states, we're actually in 16 states right now. It was 15 like just a month ago. But in our other 14 states, it doesn't have, the discovery isn't as robust as it is in our larger markets where we have a lot of density, but we're building density in those markets. And again, should be nationwide by the end of the year. So
New York City, come on. We need you here.
Largest market, actually.
All right.
Yeah, so we're getting there.
All right. And there are so many food trucks in Brooklyn, too. And I think this would be so great for Brooklyn because half the time you see them on one street, and to your point, the next day you have no idea where they are.
Exactly.
In 2019, you also, I believe, received your initial $25,000 investment from Lighthouse Labs.
Yes, you do your research extremely well. That is correct.
What did that help you do? What did that first 25K help you do? And where were you at in your journey at that point?
We were bootstrapping, never sleeping, although we still don't sleep much now. But I had a full-time job at the College Board. Kyle had a full-time job. Elle had a full-time job as well that he ended up quitting once we got the Lighthouse Lab funding. So we were bootstrapping, not sleeping, and spending a lot of time hands-on in food trucks. Like very few founders that I know actually spend time in the trenches, right? They're customer obsessed. So they survey the customers, they know them, but like we were working on food trucks. Like I have made so many meals for my owners and operators and been able to use the technology in real life just because I wanted to make sure truly that it was meeting their needs. So we were doing that lots of nights, lots of weekends. It was hard. Lighthouse Lab really did two things. One, it allowed us to have Lemire be full time, and he had paid off all his debts. He's just a really savvy engineer, but he paid off all his debts. And so the 25K was enough to have him go full time. It also gave us a network of entrepreneurs, a network of investors. And as founders of color, the one thing that I will always say I lacked coming into foundership was people to call. I didn't know other founders. I didn't know investors. I didn't know what metrics to track. There was a very big naivete and knowing that I could build great product, but not knowing how to execute on that with others, because entrepreneurship is very much so an ecosystem. And Lighthouse Labs gave us that, right? And so I'm forever grateful to them. And they did so without taking any equity.
That's incredible. I heard you say that on another podcast. I'm like, who does that? That's so amazing.
I mean, honestly, I'm a huge advocate of Lighthouse Labs because what people don't understand about like Techstars and others is that the initial investment is 25K, but they take equity for that. Now, their networks are insane. And right, like if you can do Techstars, do it. Ycom, no brainer. But what I found really valuable with Lighthouse Labs is we got that same amount of money and a really robust network that enabled us to understand what entrepreneurship needed to look like for being venture backed. And that put us on a path. And without Lighthouse Labs, I think we would have bootstrapped much longer. And I'm not sure we would have tracked the metrics that were necessary to eventually become venture backed.
Did it happen? Because I've seen this happen often where new entrepreneurs are very B2C focused because they're thinking about how the problem affects them. But the scalable market is really in the B2B. Is that an epiphany that you had when you were at Lighthouse Labs or when you were seeking venture capital, or did you always know that?
It was before. We didn't always know it, but we did go out and try to solve a problem for ourselves. When we solved the problem for ourselves, we realized that one, when we were doing it, and this is the thing about scaling B2C company. If you can do B2C right, it'll have the biggest payoff, I believe. Because when you look at like DoorDash and Uber Eats, they charge an insane amount. A lot of what they charge is like detrimental to the entrepreneurs that they serve, but they're giving them audiences that they just would not have been able to reach otherwise. And like we just spoke about, Gen Zs and millennials were lazy. We're impatient. It's convenience, it's proximity. We want it now, and we want to enjoy our lives in the meantime. We don't want to stop our lives to get something that we need. This trend will continue, and consumers really drive that ethos. There's a lot of power if you can do B2C right. The problem is B2C people, we're fickle. We like DoorDash today, but we like Uber Eats tomorrow. And then we find out that they have predatory pricing and we say, we don't want to do third parties.
We're going to cancel them.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cancel culture, all of these things. And so it's not as scalable if you don't strike the perfect balance. You almost have to strike the perfect balance. And so what you realize, and what even I believe Uber and DoorDash and all those, right? Like you really end up becoming a B2B company. And then if your B2B is doing well enough, you can then give really exceptional B2C experiences and allow the B2C to catch up and scale that way. We realized that early on by like, it's not going to be cost effective for us to just get this app in the hands of every consumer who loves food trucks, right? There's millions of us all over the world who love them. How do I get out to all the like people in the world to say that this is the best app, even though it is? How do I convince you of that? I don't want to spend that time. So what I really need to do is make sure that the business that I really want to support, because and that's another thing I think that we realized when we were solving for ourselves. What it really was is that we wanted to support them more. We wanted to be repeat customers, and there's just no easy way to do that. Deep down, it wasn't a consumer need. It was really a need to help them to be more efficient so that they could be better for us.
I was wondering, when I was thinking of your business model, is part of it that because you'll have so many food trucks that need different types of foods, different services, that because you'll represent them kind of in bulk, that there will be better pricing for them in the long run? Is that part of the business idea?
That's a huge part of the business idea. So one of the things that I love about vertical integration technology, right? This switch of actually having a focus, and our focus is on mobile vendors of all types, is that they're the loudest voice. There's no shortage of great technology. And I think a lot of times people are always looking at, well, how do you beat out this person versus that person versus that person? And it's like, I beat them out by not being obsessed with what they do. They're great. There's great technology out there already. But in that great technology, my vertical is not the loudest voice. So what does that mean? These companies will continue to build features and products that are way above and beyond what their needs are, while continuing to price up and package. So that means if I want this little small thing, I have to buy this $100 package. And it doesn't make sense to me because I just need this one thing. I don't need this full suite of services that's for this larger organization. And you're not going to build or spin out this small thing for this smaller amount of money because it doesn't make sense for you because you have a much larger audience. What vertical innovation is allowing people to do in payments and all other aspects is really have one segment be the voice. So we build everything that they say they need and nothing else. And that's powerful. Then when they say they need something, I can spin it out in a week or 2 weeks. Whereas a bigger company it might not be on their roadmap for 7 or 8 months because they need a larger amount of their ecosystem to want something for it to make sense for them from a profitability standpoint.
You're so much more nimble. Yes.
I'm so much more nimble. And to your point, that also allows me to reflect back that price point because I'm not building an overweight technology. I'm building something that's just right. It's not too light. It's not too heavy. It's just right. Like that Goldilocks situation. That's what our company does. And we're able to give them best prices. Now, we hope that as we continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, we can continue to keep those prices low. And our goal is even lower so that they can continue to keep more and more of their margins. Our vendors right now make 250% more on average than they do on incumbent platforms, which is really powerful for us. But we're hoping to get it to 400 or 500%. That's our goal by 2024. And we look to do that by, again, continuing to build thoughtful technology that basically alleviates their pain points of having to buy heavier weight incumbent products, thus allowing them to keep more of their margin. And that'll help them be more successful to scale. If they want a quick service business, if they want a restaurant, I don't care what their goals are. My only goal is to make mobile vendor millionaires and to make this a valuable path for anybody who's seeking to have entrepreneurship. Because the best jobs, as you know, by having, a successful podcast that's going all year long now, is the ability to do what you love and to control your own destiny. And you just can't do that without the proper tools.
And one of the things that you say is mobile, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but it led me to believe that, are you going to expand past just food trucks so that it will be any kind of business that is mobile?
Yeah. And it's interesting because our thought process in the beginning was that food owners and operators had these complex businesses that needed to be managed on the back end really seamlessly and simply. And we were right about that. But then we started organically getting other mobile vendors reaching out to us saying, hey.
Such as, give me an example.
So mobile retailers, for example, who were like, well, us too. We also have this mobile first business that is also participating in overweight technology, and we think yours would be better. Now we think about our product more holistically in that mobile owners and operators have a different way that they do business, very similar to food owners and operators. Now, there are differences and there are complexities. And right now we're focused on our core audience being food trucks, right? Like
you want to get that right.
We want to get it right.
Top to bottom.
100%. But we notice these similarities that our product already works for. And with a few secret sauce tweaks, we know that we can service them well on the same platform. And so it will expand out to mobile businesses in general, because just the mobile nature of owning something provides complexities that you just don't have in brick and mortar. And to be honest, you have to build a mobile first technology. You can't add, and I think this is what people think a lot about, well, this incumbent could just build like a mobile piece of their business. And it's like they've already tried to do that and it's not working, because you really need to build mobile first. That needs to be your customer. That needs to be the person that you're thinking about. And you need to think about it clearly and succinctly, and you can't just repackage and put a marketing stamp on something that's really built for institutional brick and mortar just because you have the budget to market right. It still falls below the mark.
I was going to say, I think consumers too are getting increasingly savvy about marketing and that sort of thing. And so if you're authentic in your messaging, I think that that's really the best way to go.
100%. It's like everybody should do what they do well. So if you built for brick and mortars, then like continue to do that and build thoughtful technology for them and keep it sticky and reduce churn. If you're building for mobile, then you do that, right? And we're just focused on doing it well, looking at how they move, how they conduct business, and bringing them value in every aspect, end to end, really truly wrapping the technology around their needs. And I think that has to be the company's ethos from the start in order to do it right. And that's what we're doing.
You appeared in August in Ebony. You describe yourself as an impact first executive, and you've also alluded to the fact that a lot of food truck owners are immigrants, first generation, like yourself. What do you mean exactly when you say, I am an impact first executive? What does that look like for you?
My board members won't get mad at me when I say this, but I think first about how it's going to impact, how my technology is going to impact my end user in a positive way. How is it going to increase their visibility? How is it going to increase their profitability? How is it going to move the needle for them to help them grow and scale? Because I don't feel like SMB markets that are majority, like Black, brown, immigrant, and women, get the type of love and support that they need. But these businesses fail at a less rate. It's insane. The return on investment is so high. So it's like, why wouldn't you invest in these businesses? They just need the right technology, the right support, because they're outperforming women businesses, minority owned business. We outperform every single time, but we're not getting that investment. And so when I built this company, it was about the impact. I'm looking at people that remind me of my father, remind me of my aunts, my uncles. Like my father was an entrepreneur. He owned several businesses throughout my life. And looking at that, a lot of them failed because he didn't have the right technology. He didn't have the right services. Things were too expensive. They were too overweight. It never was the right solution at the right time. I'm really focused on that impact. When I say my dream is for every person that joins Goodfynd as a platform, that they go from being a company that can make 6 figures to 7. I really focus on that. Like, that's what I care about. I'm building the technology in that way. Now, will that mean that those returns will come back to the company so I don't have to sacrifice ROI? Absolutely. Investing in me is not just about the impact, but it is the
now your board is happy. That statement made your board happy. Good, you got
right.
that in there.
You get the return, but when I build, I'm building for impact. I'm building things that I know will be sticky for my end user. I'm not building for land grabs or just to grab whatever is hot in a flashy coin. I'm doing what the data tells me is right, not what somebody says is right because they saw it in another company. Because I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can try to implement it and it's not going to work in the same way because the factors and the context is different. And so I'm impact first. I care about my end user and I'm going to continue to care about them because as long as Goodfynd exists, that's what we're existing here to do without sacrificing returns.
I think that that's amazing. And it wouldn't be She Ventures if I didn't talk a little bit about venture capital and women of color. As you know, the statistics for women of color are really paltry. I mean, paltry isn't even the right word. It's awful. It's 0.035% of venture capital go to women of color tech founders, and women overall, it's not much better, 2.3%. What has your experience been as a woman of color raising capital?
It's been hard, to say the least, and it's disheartening. And I think that's the softest way I can say it, right? It's been hard and it's been disheartening. At the same time, I've always been a person in a career that's full of people that don't look like me, whether it's been being a lawyer or a product manager, or when I started my career in banking, I've always been the only Black woman in the room, sometimes the only woman in the room, sometimes the only person of color in the room. It's always like I'm one of one of one. It's always been that way. And my father, something that he said to me when I was younger was that there is no excuses in this life. You are who you are. So I didn't choose to be a Black woman. Like, being a Black woman chose me, or rather my parents, chose me. And so I can't go into the world looking at that as a disadvantage. I have to go in every room and I have to make space and make way for myself and believe in myself that I belong there. My dad used to say, like, Sophie, you belong. And I'm so glad that, well, not only my dad, my mother too, but I'm so glad that my family told me that I belonged early on in age, because going into rooms, I believe that. It's been hard and it's been disheartening, but every investor that I talk to, even though I know there's only a 0.0035% chance that they're going to believe in me, I believe that I'm worthy to be believed in. I believe that the technology is worthy. I know that my background, my experience, my ability, like, we build everything in-house. We don't outsource anything. That type of talent is rare. And I know that. And I say, this is my superpower. Executing is my superpower. Building is my superpower. And believing in myself is my darn superpower. And I'm
Yeah.
every time. And so I get a lot of no's and that hurts. But I believe in me and I believe in what we're building. And I just keep going. And that's that type of tenacity and stick to itness is what's necessary for women and women of color, even more specifically, because if we don't have that stick to itness, and if we go into every room and we believe or question why we're there, it's going to make it harder for us to keep going. And we need more of us to keep going so that we can change the climate.
I think you've answered my next question, which was, why do you think you've been successful when many women of color are not, for whatever reason? Some people attribute this to a pipeline issue. I personally don't subscribe to that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that as well.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier with Lighthouse Labs. Like, they gave me my first opening into the VC mindset, but my first opportunity that landed was actually Lolita Taub's VC connector, right? Which is just like this random, you fill out a form, the investors, because she's so great at what she does, they fill out a form and they do a matching. And, that's how we got our first investor, the Artemis Fund. They have such a belief in our company that they've helped us really get to where we are now, alongside of Valor Ventures and GFEP and others. But Axion, now I have to just call them all out. But a part of it was a pipeline problem. I just think that if you go into it thinking that it's just a pipeline problem, then you're going to fall victim into not continuing to move forward at all, because you're going to be like, well, I'm failing because I don't have a pipeline. So I love the fact that you don't subscribe to that, because I don't subscribe to that either. It's like, the facts are the facts. You're a woman, that's a fact. I'm a minority woman, that's a fact. You don't have a pipeline, that's a fact. Okay, so what are you going to do? How are you going to push forward? And this is why everybody's path into venture capital, especially for, I believe, women and people of color, look completely different from what's written about in all of the magazines, because in order to get the funding, we've done something differently. I've gotten a million no's, probably more no's than the average founder, especially with the type of technology that I built, because it's super advanced and you usually don't see it without having 10 and 20 millions of dollars funding, right? So we had to be scrappy. And I know that. And at the end of the day, like, it doesn't make my job easier. So I just have to keep going. So subscribing to all of these different things that literally just make you feel defeated before you even go out is not helpful, right? So acknowledge it, but get your butt up and keep going because it's worth it. And the more of us that get our butt up and keep going in spite of the no's, we're going to get opportunities. And when we exit, we can change the game. Like, I hope to be a VC one day. I hope to exit and to be able to give back and to pour into people that look like me and give them the same opportunities that people that don't look like me have.
Absolutely.
Because that's how they've earned it. And people forget that. It's not that venture capital doesn't support women. It's just that there's not many women in venture capital.
It's like 11% or something. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's like people are giving opportunities to people that resemble them because they understand them. They understand their pathways. We have to be more in that space so that we can do the same thing. Like, you're a woman. I understand exactly what you're going through. I understand what it's like to be married, have a kid, run a company, and do all of that stuff. And all of that makes you great. So let me give you these dollars because I know that you're gonna kill it. Because if I was in your position, I would kill it too. So it's just about stick-to-itness. I really believe that, and not subscribing to things that will make you feel defeated.
And you've raised more than $3 million at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, 3.1. So slightly over 3 million.
Are you guys still a majority owners, may I ask? Or
currently, but that is going to change drastically coming up just because of the times that we're in right now, which is unfortunate because I definitely think some of the sacrifices that founders are having to make in this climate, and this is just a throw of the dice, you can never anticipate it, are ones that'll end up having them at a equity position that's not as desirable as it would be.
At the same time, though, I'm always reminded of, like, would you rather own 1% of, I don't know, Microsoft versus 50% of nothing, right?
Exactly. And that's what it is. At the end of the day, and this is, again, another piece of me being an impact first investor, like, it's not about being the richest Black woman in the world, right? Like, that's not my goal, although it'd be awesome. That's not my goal. My goal is to just help people be as successful as I know they can be by providing them with technology that I simply don't believe is out there for them in the way that I can build it. That's my something. And to own 20% of that something versus 70% of that something matters more. Like, this deserves to scale. It deserves to change the world. You got to do your part. And then you can be smarter on the next venture or the next opportunity, right? A lot of people who IPO, they end up owning only 10%, 5% of their company anyway. And I'm more than one. I'm not a solo founder. So the equity is also between me and my co-founders.
Other people.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs like have this training wheels venture, you know, which I'm not at all. Like, you've done amazing things, but then they learn the things that they will do differently next time, right?
Exactly. And everything is a lesson. I'm so much smarter now than I was a month ago. Definitely more smarter than I was a year or 2 years ago. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the investors that we have. The dream wouldn't be what it is if they didn't take a chance, and they continue to take a chance because they understand what this has the opportunity of being. And I respect that their input, their value, and their value means that they own more of the company as we continue to grow, and I own less. And that's what it means to be venture backed. And so I proceed. But right now, yeah, we still own the majority, and we'll own it as long as we can, and we won't when we don't, and we'll continue.
I love how you roll with the punches and you do what makes sense. Last question before you let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and your company. If you had 3 pieces of advice or tips, I'd rather say, that you wish someone had given you in regards to entrepreneurship, what would they be? What would you like to tell our listeners who might be embarking or might be in the middle of their journey?
My first tip would be to be authentic. I really wish somebody told me that the saving grace of raising venture capital in particular is being yourself, because you're going to get a ton of no's. People are going to say, the thing that I get all the time is like, I really love you as a founder, right?
Thanks.
but like, we're going to pass for now to see more traction. And I'm like, but do you see the fact that this technology is like better than
Yeah.
whatever. Hearing that can be defeating, right? Like, we like you or we love you, but not enough to invest when at a certain stage it's supposed to be all about the people. And you see it being all about the people in other ways, right? And I think if I didn't have a deep self-love and a deep sense of authenticity, like what you see is what you get, I would be devastated. I'd cry every night. I'd hate myself every night. I hate my journey, and I probably would give up. So having a deep sense of self is so important. It doesn't matter if an investor said, you know what, I really don't like Sophie. I would still be okay. I don't want that to happen. I like being likable. I like being coachable. I appreciate that, but I have a deep, deep sense of self. And so that's advice number one. Be authentic in everything that you do. Be you, because that's going to help you sleep at night, and you deserve to love you, and you deserve to feel good about you. That's number one. Number two is know your numbers back and forth. You know your numbers, own your data. Don't let anybody speak for you.
That is a big one.
Room, people will tell you, well, X and Y and Z, and this is how this happens. This is how that happens. And you need to be able to say, I understand. But in this market, this is what the data says, right? And you need to be able to run those numbers like nobody's business. Because the fact of the matter is, investors have experience, and they've seen a million different businesses do things a million different ways, and they have really exceptional and educated insights. That's a fact. But you're the only expert in a room on your business and your market, because that's all you do. You spend all of your time doing that. And when you show up into these meetings, you need to be that voice. You need to be that expert. Sometimes it means somebody will tell you something and it's like, well, that's correct in this vertical, but in this one, it operates blah, 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 blah.
Right,
and like,
right.
Let me spend a moment showing you that, like, I know what I'm doing. I know my stuff. I know my numbers, and I am willing to be challenged on that knowledge, but I am an expert. And even in those challenges, I have a POV that is valuable. I truly believe that knowing that allows investors to say, man, this is a person I can trust with my money. So that's number two. And then number three would be to have the right people around you all times. There's a right person and there's a wrong person. And whatever that means for you is different. But I truly suggest, when you decided that you want to do something, you look and see who's done it before and who can help you get there. Have value add people around you, because the people that are around you, those are the people that are giving you advice. Those are the people that become your network, become your pipeline. If you have the wrong people around you, it is very detrimental to you and your business, right?
Absolutely.
Like, value add is just important. Authenticity, knowing your numbers back and forth, and having the right people around you are my three keys that I wish somebody told me. And if you have that in the onset, you're going to kill it. And if you don't have it in the onset, you will quickly learn it.
I love it. I think it's so right on. And then now that we're wrapping up, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm looking forward to 2023. Where can listeners find out more about you and your company?
I'm on LinkedIn and I'm socially elusive, but I'm going to get on social media. That's my 2023 goal. So if you ever want to connect with me personally, I'm happy to talk to any founders, specifically female founders and founders of color. I really, love to give my time to people who are struggling and need help. So LinkedIn, DM me. I will schedule a Zoom meeting every single time. And then if you ever want to find out about Goodfynd, which I hope you do, we are at Goodfynd on all platforms.
And it's with a Y. Goodfynd, Goodfynd, just so people.
Exactly. You had to make it fancy. So change the I to a Y.
Oh, I love it. And I can't wait to see what you guys do in 2023. Thank you so much for coming on She Ventures.
Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on the podcast success.
Yay, thank you.
So happy to see a woman
shine. You've been listening to She Ventures. Like what you heard? You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter so you never miss a show.